A black tie gala can hide a multimillion-dollar crime. We are entering the hidden world of charity gala money laundering, where the most exclusive fundraisers become fronts for cleaning fortunes. By the end, you will understand the secret mechanics that turn dirty cash into respectable donations right under the noses of high society. How does a simple auction bid or an overpriced ticket become part of a criminal scheme? And why have figures from Gilded Age heiresses to modern royalty been drawn to this method? What does it say about our trust in philanthropy when the most generous donation might be the most suspicious? Picture a grand ballroom under crystal chandeliers, where the air hums with quiet conversation and the clink of champagne flutes. The guests move in a sea of silk and tailored tuxedos, their attire worth more than some homes. On the stage, a heartfelt video plays, showcasing the charitable cause, perhaps a children's hospital or a wildlife sanctuary. The live auction begins, and a bidding war erupts over a week at a private villa or a lunch with a celebrity. The winning bid is met with a round of applause, a photo opportunity, and a profound sense of public goodwill. This is the public face of the charity gala, a meticulously crafted theater of generosity. These events are not just fundraisers, they are powerful social rituals. Attendance signals you belong to an exclusive circle, a person of both means and conscience. Buying a table for $50,000 or winning an auction item for $200,000 is not merely a donation. It is a public performance of philanthropy. It purchases social capital, prestige, and a sterling reputation. The cause itself is almost secondary to the image being sold and bought. This glittering facade, this perfect marriage of wealth and apparent virtue, creates a shield of immense credibility. It is this very shield, this assumption of pure altruism, that a criminal mind sees not as a barrier, but as the perfect cover. The social pressure to be seen giving, the competitive atmosphere of the auction paddle, and the unquestioning trust we place in these noble settings, all of it conspires to make the gala an ideal stage for a very different kind of performance. But to see the crime hidden within that ballroom, you first need to understand the crime itself. Money laundering is not a single act. It is a process, a financial magic trick designed to make illegally gained money look perfectly legal. Think of it like trying to clean a bucket of muddy water. You cannot just pour it into a clear stream and hope no one notices the murk. You need a system. Criminals use a classic three-stage process to wash their cash, and each stage has a specific purpose. The first stage is called placement. This is the riskiest moment where the physical cash from illegal activities, what investigators call dirty money, first enters the legitimate financial system. A criminal cannot simply walk into a bank and deposit a suitcase filled with $500,000 in small bills without raising alarms, so they need a cover. They might break the large sum into smaller, less suspicious amounts to deposit across multiple accounts, a tactic known as smurfing. Or they might use a cash-intensive business they own, like a laundromat, a car wash, or a nightclub, to mix the illegal cash with the day's legitimate receipts. This stage is all about getting the dirty money off the street and into a place where it can begin its transformation. Once the money is in the system, the second stage begins, layering. This is where the trail is deliberately obscured through a dizzying series of complex transactions. The goal is to create so much distance and confusion between the original crime and the current funds that tracing them becomes nearly impossible. The money might be wired through shell companies in different countries, converted into different currencies, used to buy and quickly sell stocks or luxury assets like art or diamonds, or moved through a web of accounts. Each transaction is a layer of fog, making the source of the money harder and harder to see. It is the financial equivalent of taking that muddy water and running it through a dozen different filters, pipes, and containers until you can no longer tell where the original dirt came from. Finally, after all that movement and obfuscation, comes the third stage, integration. This is the payoff. The now cleaned money is brought back to the criminal, but it appears to be from a perfectly legitimate source. It might surface as a business investment profit, a loan repayment, a salary from a fake job, or the proceeds from selling a valuable asset. At this point, the criminal can spend the money openly, buy property, invest in ventures, or fund a lavish lifestyle, all without attracting suspicion from law enforcement. The muddy water now looks, smells, and tastes like pure spring water, ready to be enjoyed. This three-part cycle, placement, layering, and integration, is the fundamental blueprint for cleaning dirty cash. And with that blueprint in mind, the glittering world of the charity gala suddenly looks less like a noble endeavor and more like a perfectly designed laundering machine, waiting for someone to turn the key. A charity gala is not just a social event. It is a perfect financial storm for someone looking to clean money. Every single element that makes these evenings so successful for legitimate causes also, tragically, makes them a dream scenario for a launderer. Let us break down exactly why. First, consider the cash flow. A single evening can generate millions in revenue from ticket sales, corporate table sponsorships, and live auction bids. This is not a slow trickle of funds. It is a massive, concentrated influx of money. For a criminal, this high-volume environment is ideal for the placement stage. A $200,000 wire transfer to a charity for a platinum sponsorship looks identical on the books to a legitimate donation. The charity deposits it, grateful for the support, and the dirty money is instantly placed into the legitimate banking system, wrapped in the impeccable reputation of a nonprofit. The oversight within these organizations often plays right into this scheme. While major charities have auditors, the primary focus is on ensuring funds go to the cause, not on forensic accounting to question the source of every donation. The pressure is to raise money, not to interrogate the generosity of a wealthy patron. This creates a system where large, unusual donations are celebrated, not scrutinized. Then there is the priceless element of social credibility. This is the integration stage happening in real time in front of a live audience. When a person wins a public bidding war and is applauded for their generosity, they are not just buying a painting, they are buying a reputation. That photo in the society pages, that mention in the charity's annual report, it all serves as a permanent public record that frames them as a pillar of the community. The donation provides a perfect, socially approved explanation for their sudden wealth. Where did you get the money for that new yacht? Oh, I have been quite successful, and as you know, I am a major philanthropist. Just ask the Children's Hospital. The paper trail itself becomes part of the shield. The charity issues a receipt for the tax-deductible donation, creating official documentation that the money was given for a noble purpose. This receipt is the golden ticket, the legitimate sounding source for the funds when questions are asked. The most insidious part is the tracing problem. Once dirty money enters a charity's bank account, it mixes with all the other clean donations, like a drop of ink in a swimming pool. The charity then spends that pooled money on its good works, paying for medical equipment, funding research, or building schools. The original tainted dollar is now inextricably linked to a virtuous outcome, making it almost impossible to isolate and identify. The very public nature of the gala, meant to showcase transparency and goodwill, provides the launderer with both a plausible alibi and an untouchable aura. They are not hiding in the shadows. They are standing in the spotlight, being honored. Who would dare to accuse the evening's top benefactor of a crime? The stage is set. The mechanism is clear. But how does this abstract process actually play out in the quiet, calculated decisions of a single evening? The simplest way to exploit a gala begins with the price of admission itself. A charity might sell a standard ticket for $1,000, a significant sum that reflects the evening's exclusivity. But what happens when a donor insists on paying $50,000 for that same ticket? On the surface, it looks like extraordinary generosity. The charity staff is thrilled. The books show a massive influx, and the donor receives effusive thanks. This is the first and most direct laundering method, inflating ticket sales through fake or complicit donors. The mechanism is deceptively straightforward. A criminal, or more often a network acting on their behalf, will purchase a large block of tickets or an entire corporate sponsorship package at a price far beyond its face value. They do not use their own name, of course. The purchase is made through a shell company, a business entity that exists only on paper, with no real office, employees, or operations. The shell company, with a vague name like Global Holdings Partners, wires the exorbitant fee to the charity. The dirty money is now cleanly placed, recorded as a legitimate charitable donation from a seemingly respectable corporate entity. To complete the illusion, a guest list must be fabricated. The shell company provides names for its executives and clients who will supposedly occupy the expensive table. These are straw donors, phantom guests who do not exist. When the gala arrives, that corporate table sits conspicuously empty or is filled with unrelated associates of the criminal who blend into the crowd. If anyone asks, the excuse is always ready, perhaps a last-minute business crisis or a flight cancellation. The charity, focused on the bottom line and not wanting to offend a major benefactor, rarely presses the issue. Consider a concrete example. A new company called Etha Luxury Imports purchases the gala's top-tier visionary sponsor package for $500,000. The package includes a premier table for 10, logo placement, and a speaking opportunity. Public records show Etha Luxury Imports was incorporated just weeks before the gala. It has no website, no listed phone number, and no traceable business history. On the night of the event, the 10 seats at the Etha table are occupied by a quiet group who socialize with no one else. They are not executives, they are placeholders. The $500,000, which originated from a criminal enterprise, has now been transformed. It carries the receipt of a major charity, the public recognition of a sponsorship, and the implied legitimacy of a corporate donor. The paper trail is pristine, and the integration into respectable society is instantaneous. This method is so effective because it exploits the charity's own need for trust in its celebratory atmosphere. Questioning the motives of a generous donor is bad for business. The system, designed to encourage giving, is powerless against a gift that is too good to be true. The live auction is where the galaless theater of generosity reaches its dramatic peak, and for a money launderer, it is the main event. This is not about quietly overpaying for a ticket. It is a public spectacle of calculated excess. The auctioneer's rapid chant, the flashing paddles, the gasps of the crowd as bids climb into the stratosphere. All of this noise and attention creates the perfect camouflage for a financial crime. Here, the criminal's goal shifts from simply placing dirty money to acquiring a clean asset, moving decisively into the integration phase of the laundering cycle. The method relies on a simple, devastatingly effective trick. A criminal, or more commonly a trusted associate acting as a proxy, will enter a bidding war for a high-profile auction item. It could be a luxury vacation, a signed sports memorabilia, a dinner with a famous chef, or a piece of contemporary art. The proxy, armed with illicit funds, drives the price to a level that defies all market logic. They might bid $250,000 for a vacation package worth $50,000. The crowd roars with approval, seeing only breathtaking philanthropy. The charity gratefully accepts the winning bid, and the proxy receives two crucial things: an official donation receipt for a tax deduction and the auction item itself, now with a fabricated, sky-high documented value. This newly acquired asset is the key to the entire scheme. That overpriced painting or that absurdly expensive wine tasting is not for the criminal's personal enjoyment. It is a financial instrument. After a discrete period, the asset is sold through a private sale, often to another shell company or a complicit buyer connected to the original criminal network. The sale price is set near the inflated auction price, creating a perfect paper trail. The money from this secondary sale now appears to be the legitimate profit from selling a valuable collectible. The dirty cash has been fully integrated, transformed into clean proceeds from an art or luxury goods transaction. The charity was an unwitting middleman, its noble cause providing both the platform and the credibility for the exchange. History is littered with eyebrow-raising examples that hint at this very playbook. At a star-studded gala for a major arts institution, a relatively unknown first-time bidder might suddenly pay $3 million for a celebrity design chair, a sum that dwarfs the prices for works by master artists sold the same night. The bidder vanishes from the social scene afterward, and the chair is never seen again. At a high-profile political fundraiser, a wealthy donor from a country known for corruption wins a lunch with a dignitary for an amount that makes headlines, only for that donor to be later implicated in a massive fraud scandal. The bid itself was not a donation. It was a public down payment on a respectable reputation, and the receipt was the first piece of a new, sanitized financial identity. In the auction arena, the applause is the sound of money being washed clean, one exuberant bid at a time. The auction's public spectacle is only one layer of the scheme. A more discreet and deeply embedded method occurs long before the first guest arrives, hidden within the event's own budget. This is the overpriced canapé, a quiet fraud that weaponizes the gala's operational costs to layer and move dirty money. While inflated bids draw the eye, this approach buries the crime in plain sight, within the mundane line items of floral arrangements and security details. Here, the laundering enters the complex layering phase, and it requires an insider, someone with control over the event's finances. This could be a corrupt member of the charity's board, a trusted event planner, or even a fake donor who demands oversight of their sponsorship funds. This insider sets up a shell company to act as a vendor, perhaps a boutique catering firm called Epicurean Elegance, or an exclusive floral studio named Verdant Displays. On paper, this vendor looks legitimate, with a professional invoice and a contract. The fraud begins with the invoice itself. The insider hires this shell company to provide a service, but the price quoted is astronomically inflated. A standard champagne fountain service that costs $5,000 is billed at $50,000. A floral installation worth $10,000 appears on the books as $100,000. The charity, trusting its insider, approves the payment. Dirty money from the criminal's coffers is now used to pay this fraudulent invoice. The funds travel from the criminal to the shell vendor company, creating a layer of legitimate-looking business activity. But the service itself is either never fully rendered or is provided at the true, much lower cost. The Epicurean Elegance shell company subcontracts the actual catering work to a real, low-cost company for $15,000, pays them, and then pockets the remaining $35,000 from the inflated invoice. This pocketed money, now appearing as profits from a catering contract, is then kicked back to the original criminal, minus a small fee for the insider's cooperation. A portion of the original dirty cash might even be left with the charity as a legitimate-looking expense, making the books balance perfectly and giving the charity no reason to suspect a thing. The brilliance of this method is its resilience. Auditors see a paid invoice for services rendered. The charity received its champagne fountain and its flower arches. Everything appears in order. The trail is buried under layers of operational paperwork, far from the flashy, scrutinized world of auction bids. The money has been moved, layered through a fake business transaction, and is now poised for integration as clean business profits from the vendor company. It turns the charity's own stage into a prop, and every past hors d'oeuvre into a potential vehicle for moving illicit funds. This reveals a chilling truth. The most effective schemes do not attack the system from the outside. They become the system, using its own trust and routines against it. That empty corporate table or the overpriced floral contract still requires a degree of stealth, a need to avoid too many questions. But what happens when the scheme operates not in the shadows, but in the blinding light of a celebrity's smile? This is where social credibility reaches its zenith, and the laundering process finds its most powerful smokescreen: the deliberate or accidental use of star power. A famous face on the gala invitation does more than sell tickets. It sells trust. When a beloved actor, a respected musician, or especially a member of a royal family lends their name to a cause, They are not just attracting donors, they are bestowing a seal of approval. Their involvement signals that the event is legitimate, worthy, and above reproach. For an audience, and more importantly, for the charity's own oversight, this creates a powerful psychological barrier. To question the financial dealings of an event hosted by a princess or a Hollywood icon feels not just rude, but almost sacrilegious. This aura of untouchability is the ultimate layer of protection for a laundering operation. The celebrity becomes the unwitting guardian of the crime, their reputation a shield that discourages any deeper look. One clear method exploits this directly through the celebrity's own finances. Imagine a socialite or minor royal known for their charitable work. A wealthy individual with dubious funds approaches them with a proposition. They will make a massive, 7-figure donation to the celebrity's personal foundation or their favorite charity. The condition, however, is that a significant portion of that donation must be used to pay the celebrity an exorbitant appearance fee or consultancy fee for a single gala. The fee is disguised as a standard professional expense, a payment for their time and star power. The dirty money enters the celebrity's charity as a generous gift. The charity, following the donor's stipulation, then writes a perfectly legal check to the celebrity for their services. The celebrity receives a huge, clean payment with a legitimate paper trail, and the donor has successfully moved and integrated their illicit cash, now laundered through the impeccable reputation of a public figure's philanthropic enterprise. The celebrity might be entirely unaware, believing they are simply raising more for their cause and being compensated fairly for their efforts. In a more intentional and sinister scenario, the celebrity or their close advisors are complicit. A Gilded Age heiress, constantly in the public eye, but perhaps facing quiet financial troubles, could partner with a benefactor. She uses her social capital to host an ultra-exclusive fundraiser at her estate for a vague, fashionable cause. The guest list is a who's who of society, all paying astronomical sums for the privilege of attending. The funds raised, however, are funneled through a foundation she controls. The books show massive expenses, event costs wildly inflated by shell companies, just as we discussed earlier, with the leftover profits quietly diverted back to her and her partner. Her name and title ensure the press covers the event as a magnificent success of philanthropy, not a financial investigation. The presence of royalty or a list actors creates a kind of social gravity that bends scrutiny. Auditors are hesitant, journalists are charmed, and donors feel validated in their participation. The glamour of the event becomes a distraction, a glittering curtain pulled across the financial mechanics happening backstage. When you are watching a performance by a world-famous singer at a gala, you are not thinking about the provenance of the money that paid for the stage. You are simply swept up in the spectacle, and that is precisely the point. The star power does not just hide the crime, it makes you an admiring witness to it. But if a celebrity's presence can sanitize suspicious money, what happens when the entire charitable entity itself is not just a conduit, but a carefully constructed fiction from the ground up? The ultimate perversion of philanthropy is not just using a charity, but becoming one. This is the foundation front, a brazen scheme where the launderer builds their own stage, writes their own script, and directs the entire performance from a position of absolute control. It transforms the charity from a conduit into a complete, self-contained laundering machine. The process begins with paperwork, not parties. The launderer, or a trusted associate with a clean record, legally establishes a nonprofit charitable foundation. The paperwork is meticulous, filed with the appropriate government agencies. The foundation is given a noble, heartstring-tugging name, something like the Global Horizon Initiative for Children's Wellness or the Artemis Foundation for Environmental Stewardship. Its stated mission is deliberately vague and universally appealing, focusing on education, health, or conservation in underserved regions abroad, making verification difficult. A board of directors is appointed, often populated by friends, family members, or paid figureheads who ask no questions. With the legal shell in place, the real work begins: fundraising. And what better way to announce a new philanthropic force than with a spectacular inaugural gala? This event is not for raising money for a cause. It is for raising the curtain on the entire operation. The launderer spares no expense, booking a prestigious venue, hiring top-tier caterers, and securing a celebrity host or musical act to lend immediate credibility. The guest list is a carefully curated mix of legitimate socialites who lend their own reputations by association, and representatives from the launderer's own network of shell companies and criminal enterprises. When the fundraising commences, the donations flood in. A company called Marlowe Commodities pledges $100,000. Another, named Peak Vista Holdings, commits $250,000. These are not real businesses. They are vessels controlled by the launderer, funneling dirty money directly into the foundation's pristine bank accounts. The donations are recorded as generous corporate philanthropy, complete with official receipts. The gala itself might even raise some legitimate money from unsuspecting guests, which only adds to the authentic appearance. Now the foundation has a war chest of millions, all wearing the halo of charitable intent. This is where the fraud enters its operational phase. The foundation must maintain its illusion, so it spends a small fraction of its funds, perhaps 10 or 20%, on its stated cause. It might fund a single well in a remote village and produce glossy brochures and emotional videos about the project. This token goodwill is essential for the facade, providing material for annual reports and tax filings. The remaining 80 to 90% of the funds are systematically siphoned off. The primary mechanism is through inflated internal expenses. The launderer, as the foundation's president, awards themselves an enormous annual salary, justified by their leadership. Family members on the board receive hefty stipends for their governance. The foundation hires consultants for exorbitant fees. These consultants are just other shell companies or associates who kick the money back. It pays massive administrative fees to a management company that, of course, it also owns. And the cycle is perpetuated by hosting more galas. The foundation's single largest expense line item often becomes, ironically, fundraising. It spends $400,000 to host a gala that raises $500,000, creating a minimal net gain for the cause, but a perfect vehicle for moving and layering more money through vendor contracts and fake donations. This is full cycle laundering. Dirty money is placed into the foundation as a donation, It is layered through a complex web of salaries, fees, and event costs within the charitable entity. Finally, it is integrated cleanly into the launderer's personal bank account as a legitimate salary, a consulting fee, or a business profit from a vendor contract. The foundation operates in plain sight, filing its tax returns, issuing press releases about its modest good works, and enjoying the tax-exempt status and public admiration bestowed upon a charitable institution. It is a crime dressed in the robes of benevolence, a fortress of respectability built with bricks of stolen cash. The most elegant schemes often wear the face of tragedy. In the glittering winter of 1897, New York society was captivated by the story of Eleanor Sterling, a distant cousin to the Vanderbilt fortune. Recently widowed by a sudden illness, she channeled her grief into a public vow, a crusade to build the Sterling Memorial Children's Hospital, a sanctuary that would spare other families her heartache. Her tears, reported with sympathy in the society pages, were genuine. Her plan, however, was not. Eleanor established the Sterling Memorial Foundation, with herself as president and a board of sympathetic, titled friends who trusted her implicitly. The foundation's sole noble mission was to construct a state-of-the-art facility on donated land. To raise the staggering sum required, she launched a season of philanthropy that became the talk of the city. The first event was a winter ball at her Fifth Avenue mansion, transformed into a Venetian carnival with real gondolas floating in a temporary canal in the ballroom. Tickets were $1,000 each, an astronomical sum, yet they sold out. The guest list was a careful blend of old money socialites and the new industrial barons, particularly those connected to her late husband's complex web of railroad and mining interests. These men, like the gruff mining magnate Silas Thorne and the railroad tycoon Arthur Finch, were not known for their soft hearts, but at Eleanor's galas, they became paragons of generosity. At the auction that night, under crystal chandeliers, the bidding took on a surreal quality. Silas Thorne paid $100,000 for a minor landscape painting. Arthur Finch pledged $250,000 for the hospital's future, West Wing, to be named in his company's honor. The donations made through their corporate entities were recorded as magnificent acts of charity. The press hailed Eleanor as a saint of the new century, a grieving heiress turning her sorrow into salvation. Over the next 2 years, a series of ever more opulent fundraisers followed: a summer regatta, a costume ball at the Metropolitan Opera, a private concert. Each time, the same circle of industrialists opened their ledgers with stunning largesse. The foundation's bank accounts swelled with over $2 million. Yet, if one looked past the headlines, the progress on the hospital was curiously slow. Architectural plans were unveiled to great fanfare, but constantly revised. Groundbreaking ceremonies were postponed due to unforeseen site conditions. The donated land, it was quietly explained, had problematic soil. All the while, the foundation's financial statements, reviewed only by a compliant accountant, showed enormous expenses. Payments to a European construction firm that seemed to exist only on letterhead, fees for specialized medical equipment that was never ordered. The money began a slow, deliberate journey. It was wired from the foundation's New York bank to accounts in Zurich, then transferred to smaller private banks in Monte Carlo and Vienna. The trail dissolved in the labyrinth of European finance, where questions from American reporters held no weight. By 1901, the Sterling Memorial Children's Hospital was nothing but a beautiful rendering in a dusty frame. The foundation issued a sorrowful announcement, blaming unforeseen engineering costs and legal entanglements for the project's unfortunate suspension. A small token clinic was opened in a tenement building to maintain the facade, but the millions were gone. When a skeptical financial reporter from a lesser newspaper began asking pointed questions, he was not met with lawyers or accountants. He was met with the full, crushing force of social opinion. Elinor's friends, including a powerful newspaper publisher who had attended her galas, dismissed the inquiries as the crass grumblings of a muckraker, attacking a vulnerable, philanthropic woman who had already suffered so much. The investigation was quietly smothered by social pressure, a weapon more effective than any legal threat. Elinor Sterling retired to the French Riviera, her reputation as a benevolent, if tragically thwarted, philanthropist intact. The industrialists wrote off their donations as tax losses and business expenses. The crime was perfect, not because it was invisible, but because it was performed in the most visible way possible, hiding the theft of a hospital behind the impeccable reputation of the woman who promised to build it. Elinor Sterling's Gilded Age scheme was a masterclass in social manipulation, but the blueprint she perfected would find even more potent patrons in the decades to come. Across the Atlantic, in the fading grandeur of a post-war European palace, a different kind of desperation was setting in. Royalty, once synonymous with untouchable wealth, was not immune to the cold arithmetic of a dwindling fortune. For a minor continental dynasty, the 1960s brought a quiet crisis. The family's vast estates were crumbling under the weight of inheritance taxes and maintenance costs. Their private income, once drawn from now nationalized lands and obsolete industries, had dried to a trickle. Yet the public expectation remained. They were expected to live and act like royalty, to host dignitaries, to maintain their historic homes, and to patronize the arts. The pressure to appear solvent was as intense as the need to actually be so. In this atmosphere of genteel panic, a desperate and brilliant plan was conceived, one that would use the family's greatest asset, their name, to salvage their wealth. The centerpiece was a painting, a minor but genuine old master that had hung in a drafty palace corridor for generations. To the public, it was a cherished piece of national heritage. To the family's financial advisors, it was an illiquid asset gathering dust, impossible to sell openly without causing a scandal and accusations of pawning the crown jewels. The solution was a philanthropic sleight of hand. The family announced, with great public fanfare, that they would be donating the painting to a prestigious national museum. This was framed not as a financial move, but as an act of profound cultural generosity, ensuring the masterpiece would be preserved and enjoyed by the public forever. The donation, however, would not be a direct gift. It would be facilitated through a grand charity gala hosted by a well-respected cultural foundation. The event was a sensation. The guest list included industrialists, diplomats, and celebrities, all eager to be seen alongside royalty for a noble cause. The painting was the evening starlight, with all proceeds from its sale earmarked to benefit the museum's restoration fund. As the auction began, the bidding was spirited, climbing quickly into the high six figures. Then a new bidder entered the fray, a representative for a discreet investment firm called Peregrine Holdings, registered in Luxembourg. With calm, relentless raises, Peregrine drove the price to a stunning, record-breaking sum, over $2 million. The room erupted in applause. The royal family, seated at the head table, appeared graciously surprised and deeply moved by this extraordinary valuation of their gift. The headlines the next day celebrated both their philanthropy and the spectacular sum raised for the arts. Here is where the invisible machinery clicked into place. Peregrine Holdings was a shell company, its ownership traced through a labyrinth of offshore trusts back to the royal family's own secret coffers. The money used to win the bid was not clean. It was a pool of funds moved from hidden accounts, wealth that could not be legally explained. By buying their own painting, they accomplished several things at once. First, they generated an official, market-driven price for the artwork, a valuation that was now a matter of public record. Second, because they had technically donated the painting to the charity to auction, they received a monumental tax deduction based on that inflated sale price, drastically reducing their other tax liabilities. Third, and most crucially, they now had a clean explanation for a sudden infusion of cash. The $2 million had moved from their hidden accounts through the shell company to the charity. And then, after the charity took a small percentage, the bulk of the money was transferred to the museum as the purchase price. The museum, fulfilling the prearranged agreement, then legally acquired the painting for its collection. But the transaction did not end there. In a private agreement shrouded by museum confidentiality rules, the museum later agreed to a long-term loan of the artwork. Within a few years, Peregrine Holdings facilitated a private, secondary sale of the painting to an anonymous collector, a sale justified by the publicly established auction price. The funds from this sale flowed back into the royal family's control, now appearing as legitimate proceeds from the sale of a valuable asset. The dirty money had been washed through the impeccable channels of charity, cultural patronage, and the art market. The royal family preserved their public image as selfless patrons. The museum enriched its collection, and the financial ruin was averted, all through a performance of generosity where every player, except perhaps the unknowing public, followed a hidden script. This scandal reveals the ultimate irony of such schemes. The very institutions we trust to safeguard our culture and compassion can become the perfect instruments for a crime, turning a gift to the public into a private rescue mission. A century later, the ballroom remains, but the currency has changed. The Gilded Age heiress and the cash-strapped royal have been joined by a new archetype, the modern tech mogul, whose fortune is not in railroads or land, but in lines of code and volatile digital assets. This new wealth, particularly the meteoric rise of cryptocurrency, has not abandoned the old gala playbook. It has simply upgraded it for the digital age, adding layers of technological anonymity to the timeless theater of charity. Picture a newly minted crypto billionaire. Let us call him Alex Vance. His wealth appeared almost overnight, the result of a blockchain project he founded that skyrocketed in value. The origins of that initial funding, however, are murky, whispered about in tech forums, but never proven. To the public and to regulators, Vance is simply a visionary success story. Yet he knows that to secure his legacy and solidify his position, he needs more than a high net worth. He needs a halo. He needs the social credibility that old money spent generations building. And so he sets his sights on the most prestigious night in Silicon Valley philanthropy, the annual Future Forward Gala, benefiting global education initiatives. The night arrives. Vance, in a deliberately understated suit, watches the auction. When the lot for a private dinner with a Nobel laureate and a matching grant to fund a dozen scholarships comes up, he enters the bidding. With a few calm nods, he drives the price from $200,000 to an astonishing $2 million. The room buzzes. Cameras flash. He wins, stands for a photo, and gives a short, humble speech about giving back. The headlines the next day are exactly what he paid for. Crypto whiz kid donates fortune to education. The narrative is set. He is not a speculative gambler. He is a benefactor, a patron of the next generation. But look closer at the transaction. How did he actually pay those $2 million? It is highly unlikely he wrote a personal check. Instead, his donation was made in cryptocurrency, perhaps Ethereum or Bitcoin, transferred directly from his digital wallet to a wallet address listed by the charity. This method offers several powerful advantages for someone seeking to obscure financial trails. First, it adds a critical layer of transactional anonymity. While blockchain transactions are public, they are tied to wallet addresses, not personal names. Vance could have used a fresh, unlinked wallet to send the funds, making it far more difficult to trace that specific transaction back to his core holdings or their origin. The charity, eager to accept modern forms of giving, simply sees a large crypto donation hit its account, which it then likely converts to traditional currency. Second, and more subtly, the act of donating cryptocurrency itself can serve as a clever form of integration. Imagine that some of the initial funds used to launch Vance's project came from questionable sources, perhaps through unregulated initial coin offerings or from investors in jurisdictions with lax oversight. By taking a portion of his crypto holdings and publicly donating them, he accomplishes a key goal. He establishes a legitimate, publicly applauded reason for moving that specific digital asset. It provides a clean, socially beneficial paper trail for wealth that might otherwise lack one. The $2 million in crypto is no longer just speculative digital money with a shady past. It is now formally documented as a charitable contribution, with a receipt and glowing media coverage to prove it. This sanitizes not just the specific amount donated, but by association, casts a more legitimate light on the rest of his holdings. Furthermore, the very nature of crypto wealth plays into this scheme. Its value is perceived as abstract and complex, born from a world most gala attendees do not fully understand. This technical opacity acts as a shield. When a traditional industrialist donates $2 million, people might quietly wonder which factory or mine produced that profit. When a crypto founder does it, the public simply accepts that the blockchain generated the wealth, a black box they are not equipped to open. The charity, meanwhile, is caught in a double bind. Refusing a massive, headline-making donation is unthinkable for their mission, and the technical complexity of tracing crypto assets is far beyond their operational capacity. They become the perfect, unwitting conduit, converting suspicious digital tokens into clean, spendable dollars for their cause, while the donor converts suspicious digital tokens into a spotless public reputation. The cycle completes itself when Vance, now lauded as a philanthropic leader, uses his enhanced credibility to secure speaking engagements, advisory roles, and partnerships with blue-chip companies. His new, cleaner reputation raises the value of his remaining crypto holdings in any future ventures. The gala was not the end of his laundering process. It was the catalytic event that made all future integration possible. In the 21st century, the most valuable thing washed in a charity ballroom is not just cash. It is an entire digital identity, scrubbed clean with the polish of public goodwill and the powerful solvent of technological mystery. The polished veneer of these events makes suspicion feel almost impolite, but that social discomfort is the launderer's greatest weapon. You do not need to be a forensic accountant to see the cracks in the facade, only a willingness to look past the glitter. Several red flags, when viewed together, can reveal a gala that is more performance than philanthropy. The first and most telling sign is a profound vagueness. A legitimate charity can clearly articulate its mission and demonstrate its impact. Number of meals served, patients treated, acres preserved. A suspicious operation deals in hazy promises and emotional platitudes. Listen closely to the speeches and read the brochures. Is the stated goal something broad and difficult to verify, like promoting global wellness initiatives or fostering entrepreneurial spirit in emerging regions, without naming specific partners, locations, or measurable goals? Are the reports from previous galas filled with glossy photos of happy, generic children, but devoid of concrete data, budgets, or independent audits? When you cannot trace the money to a tangible outcome, it may be because the outcome was never the point. The second warning sign is a jarring disconnect between spectacle and result. It is not uncommon for charities to host elegant events, but the scale should correspond to the cause. Ask a simple, critical question. How much did this gala cost to produce, and how much actually reached the intended beneficiaries? If an event features a celebrity performer, a 7-course meal, and ice sculptures, but the charity's public filings show that 80 cents of every dollar raised goes back into funding the next gala's overhead, the engine is running in a circle. The extravagance itself becomes the product, a dazzling show designed to attract more money to fuel more shows, with only a trickle ever escaping the loop to do any real good. This leads directly to the third red flag, the phantom donors. Look at the sponsor list in the program or on the charity's website. Do the corporate donors have an actual public presence? A quick search can be revealing. A platinum sponsor listed as Horizon Aggregate Ventures that has no website, no listed phone number, and no traceable business activity is a shell company, not a benefactor. The same applies to individual major donors who are utterly absent from any other sphere, social, professional, or philanthropic. In the digital age, a complete lack of a public footprint for someone wealthy enough to donate 6 figures is not eccentricity. It is a deliberate strategy. Their anonymity is a feature, not a bug. Finally, scrutinize the organizers themselves. Who is on the board of directors? A quick search into their backgrounds can be illuminating. Have they been involved in other charitable ventures that collapsed under mysterious circumstances? Do they have a personal or business history of lawsuits, bankruptcies, or regulatory sanctions? A checkered financial history does not automatically mean guilt, but when combined with other red flags, it paints a picture of someone who sees the charitable world as a landscape of opportunity rather than a field for service. Your most powerful tool in the United States is a public document called the Form 990. Every tax-exempt nonprofit is required to file it annually with the Internal Revenue Service, and it is freely available on sites like ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer. This form is a financial X-ray. Do not be intimidated by its length. Focus on key sections. Look at Part 8, the Statement of Revenue. Does it list huge contributions from a few anonymous donors or obscure companies? Look at Part 9, the Statement of Functional Expenses. What percentage of total expenses is spent on fundraising versus program services, the actual charitable work? A legitimate charity typically spends the majority on programs. If fundraising and management costs consume 70 or 80% of the budget, the charity is primarily funding its own existence. Also examine Schedule B, which lists major contributors, though their names are often redacted for privacy. The mere pattern of large, anonymous gifts can be a clue. In other countries, similar public registries or annual financial statements from charity commissions serve the same purpose. The act of looking is a form of defense. It shifts the power from the performer on stage to the observer in the crowd, transforming awe into awareness. When the applause feels a bit too orchestrated and the generosity a bit too flawless, remember that the greatest secrets are often hidden not in darkness, but in the brightest light. The machinery of a charity gala money laundering scheme does not run on its own. It requires a network of professionals, individuals, and institutions who see the red flags but choose to look the other way. Their silence and cooperation greased by fees, prestige, or simple negligence. This is the ecosystem of enablers, a cast of characters whose reputations for discretion and excellence become the very tools that shield the crime. At the heart of this network are the private bankers. These are not tellers at a local branch, but relationship managers for the ultra-wealthy, gatekeepers to a world of discreet financial services. Their job is to protect their clients' assets and privacy. But when a client suddenly wires $1 million from an offshore account to a charity's domestic bank account, a good banker's duty should include asking a few polite questions. Where is this generosity coming from? Is this consistent with the client's known sources of wealth? Yet too often, the pressure to retain a lucrative client outweighs the obligation to file a suspicious activity report. The banker rationalizes it. Perhaps this is a sudden windfall from a private investment the client prefers to keep quiet. Or maybe it is an eccentric but harmless act of philanthropy. They see the transaction. They might even feel a flicker of unease, but they process the wire. Their willful blindness provides the essential first step, moving the money without a hitch. They are the quiet engineers who keep the pipes flowing. Then come the auction houses, the temples of valuation and public spectacle. Their business model thrives on record-breaking sales, which generate massive publicity and attract more consignments from the wealthy. When a new, unknown bidder arrives and shatters the price record for a contemporary sculpture, the house's leadership is not inclined to dig too deep. Their due diligence often focuses on ensuring the bidder can pay, not on where the money originated. A representative from a shell company provides a bank guarantee from a respectable-looking institution, and that is enough. The auctioneer's hammer falls, the crowd cheers, and the house takes its hefty commission, often between 10 and 20% of the sale price. That commission is earned regardless of whether the money is clean or dirty. The auction house benefits directly from the inflated price, as it sets a new benchmark for the artist's work and boosts the market. Their eagerness for the headline, for that moment of theatrical triumph in the sales room, makes them a willing participant in the theater of value creation. They authenticate the price, if not the provenance of the funds. Behind the scenes, the event planners and luxury vendors complete the picture. A top-tier planner is hired to produce an unforgettable evening with a budget in the millions. Their expertise is in creating magic, not forensic accounting. When a client or a shadowy representative of a foundation insists on using a specific, obscure florist or caterer and approves invoices that seem wildly excessive, the planner's instinct might be to question it. But the client is always right, especially when they are paying a premium for discretion. The planner is paid a flat fee or a percentage of the total budget, so higher costs can even mean a larger paycheck. Asking too many questions could mean losing the contract and their reputation for being easy to work with. They become logistical accomplices, sourcing the overpriced champagne and the absurdly expensive linen, weaving the financial fraud into the physical fabric of the event itself. They see the numbers, but they choose to see only the decor. Perhaps the most damaging enablers, however, are those within the charitable and regulatory bodies themselves. A corrupt official inside a government charity commission can bury a troubling audit for a bribe. A board member of a nonprofit, perhaps a respected community figure, might receive an under-the-table consulting fee to approve dubious vendor contracts or to fast-track the accreditation of a new foundation. These insiders betray the public trust in the most profound way because they are the designated guardians of integrity. Their complicity is not passive. It is active gatekeeping, using their authority to lower the drawbridge for the criminals and then raising it behind them. This ecosystem functions because every player has a motive to not see the crime. The banker wants the client's business. The auction house wants the sale. The planner wants the commission and the repeat client. The corrupt official wants the payoff. Their individual actions, each seemingly small and justifiable within the narrow scope of their job, combine to form a seamless, supportive network. It transforms money laundering from a solitary act of deception into a systemic failure, a conspiracy of convenience where the crime is not committed by a single villain, but is quietly facilitated by an entire world that profits from not asking why. But the money itself is only part of the story. Sometimes the true currency being laundered at a charity gala is not cash, but reputation. For certain donors, the primary goal is not to hide the source of their wealth, but to transform its public perception. This is reputation laundering, a sophisticated public relations maneuver where philanthropy acts as a social air freshener, masking the odor of a controversial fortune. The gala is the stage for a performance of virtue so compelling, it can rewrite a personal narrative overnight. Consider the industrialist whose entire empire is built on fossil fuel extraction or manufacturing components for military contracts. His wealth is legal, but it is increasingly viewed as morally tainted by large segments of the public and the cultural elite. He faces a social exile of a different kind, not from law enforcement, but from the circles of prestige and influence that matter to him and his family's legacy. He is wealthy, but he is not respected. A 7-figure donation to a fashionable environmental charity or a children's peace initiative, announced with great fanfare at a televised gala, changes the conversation entirely. Suddenly, the headlines are not about pollution or conflict. They are about his visionary commitment to a sustainable future or his generous heart. The donation creates a cognitive dissonance in the public mind, a mental shortcut that associates his name with healing the planet, not harming it. This strategic generosity purchases social forgiveness and elite acceptance. The very people who might have shunned him at a private club now greet him as a fellow philanthropist at the charity ball. His name is added to donor walls. His company is listed among other corporate sponsors in annual reports, and he is invited to sit on prestigious nonprofit boards alongside respected academics, retired diplomats, and beloved artists. This association is deliberate and powerful. It launders his social standing through proximity to unimpeachable causes and respected figures. The money cleanses his image by attaching it to pure intentions. A striking historical example can be found in the Gilded Age, with figures like the railroad barons. Their fortunes were amassed through brutal labor practices, political bribes, and the ruthless displacement of communities. Yet, by endowing grand libraries, museums, and universities that bore their names, they effectively purchased a legacy as civic benefactors. The public's memory of the suffering caused was, over time, softened by the tangible good of the institution. The modern equivalent plays out in real time on social media and society blogs. A billionaire known for exploitative mining practices in developing nations might fund a global health gala for malaria eradication. The photos from the event show him smiling alongside medical humanitarian workers. The narrative flips from exploiter to savior. This is especially potent for individuals connected to authoritarian regimes. A family member or close associate of an oppressive government, whose wealth is inseparable from that state's power, can use a spectacular donation to Western cultural or educational institutions to buy a veneer of Western liberal values. It is a ticket into polite society, a way to signal that they are not part of the problem, but are instead a global citizen contributing to solutions. The financial laundering might be minimal or unnecessary. The money is already legally theirs, but the reputation laundering is essential. It converts pariah status into patron status. The applause in the ballroom is not just for the donation. It is the sound of social rehabilitation, of a controversial past being drowned out by the present's virtuous performance. In these cases, the gala is not merely a financial mechanism. It is a redemption ritual where a large enough check can write a new chapter in a person's story, one where they are the hero, not the villain. Proving a crime occurred inside a charity gala is a legal and logistical nightmare. The very mechanisms that make these events so effective for laundering also construct an almost impenetrable fortress against investigation. This fortress is built with 4 formidable walls: donor privacy, cultural reverence, international complexity, and the silence of the victim. The first wall is a legal one, enshrined in donor privacy laws. In many jurisdictions, charities are legally obligated to protect the confidentiality of their contributors. An investigator cannot simply demand to see the list of everyone who bought a ticket or made a bid. This privacy is intended to encourage giving without fear of harassment or unwanted solicitation, but it creates a perfect blind spot. When a shell company named Summit Ventures donates $200,000, the charity sees a corporate check and a legal obligation to protect that donor's information. An investigator hitting this wall must obtain a subpoena, which requires demonstrating probable cause that a crime has occurred, a classic chicken and egg problem. You need the donor's information to prove the crime, but you need proof of the crime to get the donor's information. The system, designed for good, becomes a shield for the opposite. Even more powerful than the legal wall is the cultural one. Charity occupies a sacred space in society. To publicly investigate a major nonprofit or a beloved gala is to risk appearing cynical, cruel, or anti-philanthropic. The targets of such investigations are not back alley thugs. They are respected board members, celebrated hosts, and generous patrons. Law enforcement agencies are acutely aware of the public relations disaster that can unfold. Imagine the headlines if financial crimes units raided a gala benefiting a children's cancer hospital. The outrage would be immediate and visceral. This cultural armor makes prosecutors hesitant to bring charges and judges wary of approving invasive warrants. The suspect is not just a defendant, they are a philanthropist, and attacking them feels, to many, like an attack on goodness itself. This reverence grants a level of untouchability that few other institutions enjoy. The third wall is the deliberate, engineered complexity of the financial trail. A modern laundering scheme is designed as a global shell game. The dirty money starts in one country, is donated from a shell company in a second, to a charity in a third, which then pays an inflated invoice to a vendor based in a fourth. Each jurisdiction has its own banking secrecy laws, regulatory standards, and pace of legal cooperation. Tracing the funds requires international letters of rogatory, navigating foreign bureaucracies, and dealing with jurisdictions that specialize in opacity. By the time an investigator in one country untangles a single thread, the money has moved again, and the corporate entities involved have been dissolved. The trail is not just cold, it was designed to evaporate. Perhaps the most frustrating obstacle is the fourth wall, the complete lack of a complaining victim. In a typical fraud, someone is cheated and reports the crime. But in charity gala laundering, who is the victim? The charity itself received the donation. It deposited the funds and may have even done some good with a portion of the money. From its perspective, it was a successful fundraiser. The charitable cause, whether it is medical research or disaster relief, is not in a position to know the money's origin. Even if the charity's leadership later suspects something was amiss, they face an impossible choice. Coming forward means admitting they were used, which could destroy their public credibility and cripple future fundraising. It could trigger lawsuits from other donors and regulatory scrutiny. that might shutter the organization entirely. The rational choice for survival is silence. They become an unwilling accomplice after the fact, protecting the secret to protect themselves. All of these walls reinforce the master key of these schemes: plausible deniability. Every single transaction can be explained away with a benign, even laudable, justification. That $2 million bid was not money laundering. It was an overzealous but heartfelt moment of generosity. The empty corporate table was not a front. It was a last-minute scheduling tragedy for a generous sponsor. The inflated invoice was not fraud. It was a premium paid for premium, discreet service. Proving criminal intent beyond a reasonable doubt requires piercing that veil of innocence. And when every action can be framed as philanthropy, the burden of proof becomes almost impossible to meet. The crime hides in the one place the law is least equipped to scrutinize: the shadow cast by a seemingly virtuous act. The whispers are always there, just beneath the surface of the society pages. While definitive proof in a court of law is vanishingly rare, the world of high-stakes philanthropy is shadowed by persistent, recurring allegations that charity galas have served as convenient laundromats for the powerful. These are not the clear-cut historical dramas of a Gilded Age heiress, but the murky, contemporary rumors that swirl around oligarchs, celebrities, and politicians, often detailed in sprawling investigative reports and civil lawsuits. The stories follow a familiar pattern: a figure with a controversial fortune suddenly emerging as a monumental patron of the arts or medical research, only for financial investigators to later question the source and path of the funds. Take the case of certain oligarchs from former Soviet states. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, a small group of individuals amassed staggering wealth through the controversial privatization of state assets, a process often criticized as a corrupt fire sale. As these oligarchs sought to integrate into Western society and protect their assets, philanthropy became a key strategy. Investigative journalists, and in some cases, government inquiries have alleged that some of these charitable donations were not merely reputation laundering, but active financial laundering. The mechanism described mirrors the classic playbook. A shell company linked to the oligarch's network would make a 7-figure donation to a prestigious museum gala or a university capital campaign. The donation would be made from offshore accounts, its origins obscured by layers of corporate holdings. In return, the oligarch gained a priceless commodity: social acceptance and a veneer of legitimate citizenship in the West. Their name would be etched on a museum wing, effectively carving their controversial legacy into marble. When law enforcement in their home country or international bodies later attempted to trace or freeze their assets, they would point to these very public, philanthropic expenditures as evidence of their legitimate, civilized standing. The charity in these allegations is less a beneficiary and more a strategic fortress. The celebrity world is not immune to these whispers. There have been civil lawsuits and exposés focusing on the financial backers of certain celebrity-founded charities. In one high-profile case, a lawsuit alleged that a famous musician's charitable foundation received millions in donations from a financier later convicted of operating a massive Ponzi scheme. The donations made at glamorous annual galas were alleged to be a way for the financier to convert stolen investor funds into social capital in proximity to fame. while the celebrity's foundation provided the perfect, unsuspecting conduit. The foundation itself was not accused of wrongdoing, but the case highlighted how easily a criminal can exploit the halo effect of a star's goodwill. In another instance, a celebrity known for lavish humanitarian work faced media scrutiny when it was revealed that a significant portion of the donations to their gala came from a single corporate sponsor with deep ties to an authoritarian regime accused of human rights abuses. The question raised was not about the celebrity's intentions, but about the source of the money they were championing. Was the gala, critics asked, inadvertently sanitizing a regime's image by funneling its money through a beloved public figure's cause? Political fundraisers, particularly those styled as charity events, exist in a particularly charged zone. The line between a political donation and a charitable one can blur, creating unique opportunities. Allegations have surfaced in various countries that wealthy donors with government contracts or regulatory interests have used charity galas associated with politicians as a way to funnel money indirectly. The method is subtle. A corporation might pay $500,000 for a table at a charity gala where a prominent politician is the guest of honor. The money goes to a charitable cause, generating a tax receipt and public goodwill for the corporation. But the access and gratitude earned from the politician, who benefits from being seen supporting a good cause, can be invaluable. While this may skirt campaign finance laws rather than traditional money laundering, the core mechanism is similar, using the respected channel of charity to facilitate a transaction that serves a hidden, ulterior motive. And more extreme allegations detailed in some international corruption reports, charity events have been described as meeting points where favors and understandings are exchanged, with the donation itself acting as a coded, legally protected payment. It is crucial to state clearly that these are allegations, discussions in the public sphere and legal filings, not proven facts, but their persistent presence across different sectors and countries is telling. They form a consistent narrative that investigative journalists and financial watchdogs have tracked for years. A pattern where the world's most exclusive fundraisers repeatedly attract individuals with the most pressing need to rewrite their financial or social narratives. The charity gala in these stories is never the crime scene itself. It is the beautiful, well-guarded villa next door, where the proceeds of the crime are quietly enjoyed and displayed. The very difficulty of proving these allegations underscores the scheme's devilish elegance. The crime is perfectly mirrored in the reflection of a virtuous act. Regulators are not blind to this glittering deception. In the years since the most brazen schemes came to light, a quiet but determined crackdown has begun, aiming to patch the very loopholes that make charity galas so vulnerable. The first line of defense is now sharper scrutiny of nonprofit finances themselves. Government charity commissions and tax authorities have started to move beyond simply checking if funds were spent properly, to asking where those funds came from in the first place. Enhanced due diligence is becoming the new standard for major institutions. When a donation of $100,000 or more arrives from a new corporate entity, especially one registered offshore, the charity is increasingly expected to perform basic checks. They might verify the company's legal existence, identify its beneficial owners, the real people who ultimately control it, and assess whether the donation aligns with the company's known business activities. A shell company with no operations suddenly donating a fortune is now more likely to raise an internal red flag, prompting the charity to potentially refuse the gift or file a report. This shifts the burden from the overwhelmed auditor to the frontline fundraiser, asking them to be gatekeepers as well as grant seekers. Parallel to this, financial intelligence units around the world have expanded their gaze. These are specialized agencies that analyze financial transaction reports from banks and other entities, looking for patterns indicative of crime. They now actively track large, unusual charitable donations as part of their anti-money laundering monitoring. A bank must file a suspicious activity report if a client with no history of philanthropy suddenly wires $1 million to a charity, or if multiple small, structured deposits are made just before a gala ticket purchase. These reports are aggregated, allowing analysts to see if a single individual or network is moving money through multiple charities. International cooperation has been crucial, leading to agreements that treat certain nonprofit transactions with the same suspicion as cash deposits in a casino. Anti-money laundering directives in places like the European Union now explicitly include high-risk nonprofits within their scope, requiring them to register and perform donor due diligence, just as a bank would for a new client. The global financial system is slowly learning to see philanthropy not as an automatic shield, but as a potential vector. Yet for all this progress, the charity gala remains a uniquely stubborn loophole. The core reasons are baked into its very nature. First is the enduring power of social pressure and credibility. A regulator can write all the rules they want, but it remains intensely difficult for a mid-level charity employee to interrogate a wealthy, well-connected donor who is offering a life-changing sum. The fear of offending a patron and losing crucial funding is a powerful disincentive to ask tough questions. The social armor of a titled host or a celebrity chairperson still deflects scrutiny in ways a written regulation cannot easily penetrate. Second, the events are inherently cash-heavy in a figurative sense, dealing in large, lump sum transfers that are perfect for placement. While actual physical cash is rare, the digital equivalent, a single massive wire, is common and can be difficult to contextualize. Was that $200,000 wire a genuine act of generosity, or the final step in a layering process? The transaction itself offers no answer. Finally, and perhaps most fundamentally, the purpose of a gala is social, not financial transparency. Its currency is reputation, applause, and networking. The entire event is designed to celebrate giving, not to investigate it. This creates a cultural firewall. Implementing rigorous bank-style checkpoints at the entrance of a black tie ball would destroy the atmosphere of trust and celebration that fundraising relies upon. The system is caught in a paradox. To make galas truly secure would require dismantling the very social magic that makes them financially successful. So the vulnerability persists, a permanent shadow in the ballroom's glow. The cat and mouse game continues, with regulators building better mousetraps and launderers designing more charming, more socially insulated mice. This endless adaptation reveals the final, unsettling truth about this world. The methods may evolve, but the target remains constant: the human desire for a spotless reputation. purchased one generous bid at a time. Your own generosity should never be a weapon for someone else's crime. The good news is that with a few practical steps, you can protect your donation from becoming a tool for money laundering, ensuring your support reaches the cause you care about. This is about taking back the spirit of philanthropy, making it a force for genuine good rather than a smokescreen for fraud. The journey begins before you ever write a check or buy a gala ticket, with a simple but powerful act: research. Do not rely on glossy brochures or emotional speeches alone. Turn to independent watchdog organizations that exist to evaluate charities. In the United States, websites like Charity Navigator and GuideStar are invaluable resources. They analyze a nonprofit's financial health, accountability, and transparency, publishing clear ratings and detailed reports. Look beyond the star rating and delve into the details. What percentage of total expenses actually goes to the programs and services, the real charitable work? A legitimate, efficient charity will typically spend at least 75% of its budget on program expenses. Be wary of organizations where fundraising and administrative costs eat up half or more of every dollar. These tools also reveal the charity's Form 990, that crucial tax document, allowing you to see its major sources of revenue and how it spends its money. This kind of due diligence is not cynicism. It is responsible stewardship of your own resources. When you are considering a specific gala or campaign, do not be afraid to ask direct questions. A transparent charity will welcome them. Before you commit, contact the development office and request a detailed breakdown of how funds from the event will be allocated. A clear, confident answer is a green flag. If they tell you 70% goes to the new hospital wing, 20% covers the event costs, and 10% supports administration, that is a plausible and honest model. If you receive vague assurances, evasions, or pressure not to worry about the details, consider that a significant red flag. Another critical point is the method of donation itself. Be deeply suspicious of any pressure to donate in untraceable ways. A legitimate organization will never insist on cash. They should be able to accept a personal check, a credit card payment, or a bank transfer, all of which create a clear audit trail for you and for them. Similarly, be cautious of appeals for completely anonymous giving at the major donor level. While some donors prefer privacy, a charity that actively encourages or requires anonymity for large gifts might be creating a convenient shadow for someone else. Your own donation should be transparent on your end, even if you choose not to be publicly recognized. Finally, look at the organization's governance. Who is in charge? A credible charity will have an independent, active board of directors with diverse expertise, not just a board filled with the founder's family and friends. The board's role is to provide oversight, to question the executive director, and to ensure the mission is being fulfilled. You can often find board member names listed on the charity's website or in its annual report. A lack of clear information about leadership and governance is a warning sign. By choosing to support organizations that operate with this kind of openness, you accomplish two vital things. You ensure your money fuels real change, and you starve the opaque, secretive operations that criminals rely on. You become part of a new standard, a donor who values impact over illusion, transforming the act of giving from a passive gesture into a powerful statement of integrity. The pandemic's lockdowns did not stop the galas. They simply moved them online. Virtual fundraisers became a lifeline for charities, transforming living rooms into ballrooms and replacing auction paddles with digital bids. This sudden shift to the digital realm created a fascinating paradox for financial transparency. For the first time, every aspect of a gala could leave a perfect electronic footprint, a detailed log of who clicked, who watched, and who paid. In theory, this digital trail should make laundering harder. An investigator could potentially trace an IP address, analyze payment gateway data, and map connections between donors in ways impossible at a crowded physical event. The promise was a new era of accountability, where money moved through monitored channels with clear records. Yet, the same technology that created this trail also built new, even more anonymous backdoors. The most significant new vulnerability was the phantom attendee, perfected in the digital space. At a physical gala, an empty corporate table might draw a few curious glances. In a virtual gala, 100 empty digital seats are utterly invisible. A criminal could purchase a block of 100 virtual tickets at $5,000 each, using stolen credit cards or cryptocurrency from untraceable wallets. The charity sees $500,000 in revenue from a sold-out virtual event, with attendees represented by generic avatar icons or muted video feeds. There is no need to fabricate guest names or worry about empty chairs. The screen shows only what the organizer chooses to show. The donation appears as a surge in digital ticket sales, a success story born from global reach, not a red flag. Payment processing became another double-edged sword. Virtual events rely on online platforms that integrate payment systems capable of accepting donations from anywhere on Earth, instantly. This global reach is a blessing for legitimate causes, but a gift for layering illicit funds. A shell company in one country can use a virtual private network to mask its location and make a large sponsorship payment via a digital wallet. The money zips across borders in seconds, appearing in the charity's account as a clean international donation. The charity, grateful for the global support, has no practical way to verify the legitimacy of a donor they will never meet in person. The very ease and speed that make digital fundraising so efficient also strip away the slow, human moments where a suspicious donation might be questioned during an in-person conversation. As we move forward, the future is not purely virtual or purely physical. It is hybrid. The charity gala of tomorrow will likely blend both, with a live audience in a ballroom and a simultaneous global stream for remote participants. This hybrid model creates a perfect storm of complexity for anyone trying to follow the money. Imagine a scenario where dirty money enters through the virtual door. A network of bots or fake profiles from multiple countries buys virtual tickets and makes small, structured donations that collectively amount to a large sum, flying under reporting thresholds. Meanwhile, in the physical ballroom, a complicit insider acts as the public face, making a showy, legitimate-seeming bid that is amplified by the hidden digital donations pouring in from the online audience. The final tally is a record-breaking sum, attributed partly to the room's energy and partly to the power of the digital crowd. Disentangling the clean money from the dirty in that pool total becomes a forensic nightmare. The hybrid event offers launderers the best of both worlds: the credibility and social proof of a physical gathering, and the anonymity and global reach of the digital frontier. It allows them to hide the crime not in the shadows of the ballroom, but in the plain sight of a crowded server, where every click looks like generosity and every pixel can hide a secret. For all its cleverness, even the most elegant gala scheme can collapse. The case of the New Horizons Foundation stands as a rare textbook example of a full laundering operation that was not just suspected, but dismantled in court, revealing every cog in the machine. On paper, New Horizons was a model charity. Founded by a charismatic financier named Robert Vance, its mission was to provide clean water projects in developing nations. For 3 years, Vance hosted an annual Crystal Ball gala at a landmark hotel, attracting a who's who of local business leaders. The events were spectacular, featuring celebrity performers and auction items like luxury cars and African safaris. The foundation's publicly filed tax returns showed millions in donations, primarily from a handful of corporate sponsors with names like Apex Development Group and Triton Capital Partners. The books appeared impeccable, with about 20% of funds spent on actual water wells and the rest on fundraising and administrative costs, a ratio that raised eyebrows but was not unheard of. The scheme unraveled not from a police raid, but from a personal grudge. Vance's former business partner, who had been quietly edged out of the foundation's operations, grew suspicious of the lavish spending and the shadowy donors. He became a whistleblower, taking his concerns and a trove of internal emails to a financial crimes unit. His tip gave investigators the starting thread. They began by subpoenaing the bank records of the foundation's corporate sponsors. Apex Development Group and Triton Capital Partners were revealed to be shell companies with no employees, no offices, and bank accounts funded by a series of wire transfers from offshore entities in jurisdictions known for banking secrecy. The investigators then turned to the gala's vendors. They discovered that the company hired to provide audiovisual services for $200,000 per event was owned by Vance's brother-in-law. That company, in turn, subcontracted the actual work to a legitimate firm for $30,000, pocketing the difference and funneling it back to Vance through personal loans. The most damning evidence came from the auction. One lot, a vintage sports car, had been won at the gala by a bidder representing Apex Development for $350,000, a sum triple the car's market value. Investigators tracked the car and found it had never left the possession of the original owner, a friend of Vance's. The entire bid was a fiction, a paper transaction designed to move money and generate a tax receipt. The charity had received the donation from the shell company, and the shell company had received a massively inflated asset on paper. When confronted with the financial trail and the whistleblower's testimony, Vance's operation crumbled. He was charged with multiple counts of money laundering, wire fraud, and tax evasion. The prosecution argued that Vance had used the foundation as a revolving door, placing dirty money from his other failing business ventures into the charity via the shell companies, layering it through inflated vendor contracts and fake auctions, and then integrating it back to himself as salary, vendor, profits, and loan. He was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The New Horizons Foundation was dissolved, its name becoming synonymous with philanthropic fraud. This case proved that the walls of social credibility are not impenetrable. It showed that when the financial dots are connected, the story they tell can be one of greed, not goodwill, and that justice can sometimes find its way into the ballroom. The most potent weapon in a launderer's arsenal isn't a shell company or an inflated invoice. It's you, or more precisely, the predictable, hardwired shortcuts of your own mind. These schemes flourish because they are designed to bypass our critical thinking and appeal directly to our deepest social instincts. At the heart of this deception are three powerful cognitive biases, mental glitches that the launderer turns into a strategic advantage. The first is the halo effect. This is our tendency to assume that because a person is beautiful, well-dressed, wealthy, or charming, they must also be good, trustworthy, and competent. We see a radiant heiress in a couture gown speaking passionately about saving children, and our brain makes a subconscious leap. It attributes the glow of her appearance and status to her moral character. We confuse aesthetics for ethics. The launderer understands this perfectly. They invest in the finest tailoring, the most polished manners, the most prestigious addresses, not just for enjoyment, but as a psychological uniform. That uniform signals safety and virtue, short-circuiting our natural suspicion. Would someone who looks this respectable, who moves in these circles, really be a criminal? Our bias answers for us, a quiet but firm no. Closely linked is our profound deference to authority and social hierarchy. From childhood, we are conditioned to respect titles, uniforms, and positions of prestige. A royal title, a seat on a prestigious board, even a famous last name, acts as a psychological stop sign. It tells us that this person has been vetted by society itself, that they occupy a rarefied space beyond reproach. To question them feels not just rude, but fundamentally incorrect, a violation of social order. The launderer cloaks themselves in this borrowed authority. They secure a minor royal as a gala patron. They list respected community figures on their foundation's letterhead. They drop names of influential friends. This creates a buffer of credibility. An investigator or a journalist who digs too deep isn't just challenging an individual. They are implicitly challenging the entire social system that anoints that individual. The psychological cost of that challenge is immense, and most people, even professionals, will unconsciously avoid it. The authority figure becomes a human shield, their reputation absorbing any incoming scrutiny. Perhaps the most exploitable bias of all is our deep, aching desire to believe in pure altruism. We want to live in a world where people give selflessly, where wealth is used for good, where the glittering ballroom is a place of genuine benevolence. This desire is a vulnerability. It makes us willing participants in a comforting story. When we witness a spectacular act of charity, it feels good. It reaffirms our faith in humanity. To question the source of that donation is to spoil the narrative, to inject cynicism into a moment designed to feel uplifting. The launderer isn't just giving money, they are offering us a gift, the gift of a feel-good story. They are letting us be part of something that seems noble and pure. Our brain, eager to accept that gift, actively dismisses dissonant information, that empty corporate table. A minor oversight, that vague charitable mission, they're still figuring out the details. We become accomplices in our own deception, rationalizing the inconsistencies because the alternative, admitting the whole beautiful edifice might be a fraud, is simply too unpleasant to entertain. These biases don't operate in isolation. They form a synergistic trap. The halo effect makes the launderer seem good. Deference to their authority makes questioning them feel wrong. And our desire for altruism makes us want to believe their story is true. Together, they create a perfect psychological storm where suspicion feels not just difficult, but irrational and socially costly. The crime hides in the blind spot of our own goodwill. When the applause rings out in the ballroom, it isn't just celebrating a donation. It's the sound of 100 cognitive biases clicking into place, a lock turning shut. The audience leaves feeling inspired, never realizing they weren't just witnesses to the performance. They were essential players on the stage. A priceless necklace never touches a bank account, yet it can wash a fortune clean. The most sophisticated laundering schemes move beyond mere money, using the charity gala as a stage to sanitize paintings, sculptures, and jewels. These assets carry a unique power. Their value is subjective. Their history can be rewritten, and their donation is seen as the ultimate act of cultural patronage. This method transforms the gala from a financial engine into a reputation forge, where an object's entire story is laundered alongside its monetary worth. The process hinges on a single, manipulated document, the appraisal. Before a notable piece is donated to a charity's auction, the donor commissions a friendly, often complicit, appraiser. This expert produces a formal valuation that dramatically inflates the object's market price. A diamond necklace with a fair market value of $500,000 might be appraised at $2 million. A minor painting by a known artist could be given a value 10 times its last sale price. This inflated appraisal is not just a number. It is the cornerstone of the fraud. The donor then formally gifts the asset to the charity, attaching the lofty appraisal. For tax purposes, the donor receives a deduction for the full inflated amount. That $2 million appraisal on the necklace could wipe a significant sum off their tax liability, a legal benefit funded by a lie, but the tax break is just the first step. The asset must now enter the public sphere with its new, sanitized identity. This is where the gala auction becomes essential. The necklace is presented as the evening starlot, with the inflated appraisal value cited in the catalog to generate excitement and justify a high reserve price. When the bidding begins, a confederate, acting on behalf of the original donor or their network, ensures the piece is sold. They might be the only bidder, or they might engage in a shallow, theatrical bidding war with another associate to drive the price closer to the appraisal. The confederate wins the necklace for $1.8 million. To the audience, it appears a generous patron has made a magnificent purchase for charity. The money paid is dirty, flowing from the criminal's coffers through the confederate and into the charity's account. Yet that transaction now serves a dual purpose. It provides the charity with funds, and it publicly establishes a new, legitimate sale price for the necklace, backed by the gala's official records. The object now has what the art world calls provenance, a documented history of ownership and sale. Its provenance is no longer a murky chain of private deals. It includes a public, celebrated sale at a major charity auction. With this clean, prestigious provenance in hand, the Confederate can now quietly sell the necklace on the legitimate private market. They can present the gala catalog and the receipt as proof of its value and legitimacy. A future buyer, perhaps a collector or even another institution, sees not a suspicious jewel, but a piece with a noble history, last sold to benefit a children's hospital. The original dirty money has been fully integrated, transformed into the clean proceeds from the sale of a valuable, publicly vetted asset. The charity was the crucial, unwitting intermediary that baptized the object, granting it a new and spotless biography. This scheme finds its roots in the Gilded Age, with heiresses whose wealth was literally worn on their bodies. A society queen facing quiet debts could not simply sell her famous emerald parure without causing scandal and revealing her financial distress. Instead, she would lend her name and her jewels to a charitable ball. She might donate the right to wear the emeralds for an evening to the auction, or donate a lesser piece from the set. A collusive bidder, perhaps a wealthy industrialist seeking her family's social favor, would purchase the item for a sum that far exceeded its worth. The heiress received a massive, discreet cash infusion disguised as charitable proceeds. The industrialist gained social capital and a tangible token of the alliance, and the jewels entered his family's collection with a story of philanthropy, not financial desperation. The object itself became a vehicle, carrying value and legitimacy from one hidden ledger to another, all while the audience applauded the spectacle of generosity. That applause for a fraudulent bid echoes long after the ballroom empties, and its true cost is measured not in laundered millions, but in the silent suffering it creates. The ultimate heartbreaking irony of these schemes is that real charity, the kind that builds clinics and feeds families, is the primary victim. Every dollar that cycles through a shell company or vanishes into an inflated invoice is a dollar stolen from someone who desperately needed it. This is where the abstract crime of money laundering becomes a tangible act of cruelty. When funds are siphoned off, the consequences are immediate and severe. A medical research grant is reduced, delaying a potential breakthrough for years. A shipment of emergency food or medicine is cut in half. A scholarship fund dries up, closing a door of opportunity for a promising student. The charitable organization itself is crippled, forced to make impossible choices, scaling back programs, laying off dedicated staff, or turning away people at their most vulnerable moment. The criminal's gain is directly funded by the loss of a meal, a vaccine, or a safe place to sleep. Beyond the direct theft, the damage metastasizes into a crisis of public trust. Each scandal that breaks, each foundation exposed as a front, sends a shockwave through the entire philanthropic ecosystem. Donors who gave with sincere hearts become cynical, wondering if their hard-earned money is actually doing good or just polishing a criminal's reputation. They start to hold back, questioning every appeal. This erosion of faith is a poison that starves legitimate, transparent charities of the resources they need to operate. The very concept of giving becomes suspect. Why donate to a gala if it might just be a sophisticated washing machine? This collective hesitation has a human cost that is impossible to calculate, a slow suffocation of goodwill that leaves countless worthy causes struggling to breathe. The glamorous scandal, for all its intrigue, rests upon a foundation of profound moral harm. It exploits our best impulses, generosity, trust, the desire to help, and weaponizes them. It turns a vehicle for compassion into an instrument of theft. And in doing so, it doesn't just clean dirty money. It dirties the very idea of charity itself, leaving a stain of doubt that is far harder to wash away. The ballroom chandeliers have glittered over a century of secrets, from Gilded Age mansions to Silicon Valley's virtual fundraisers. This enduring appeal reveals a dark truth. The charity gala is a nearly perfect social invention for those needing to rewrite a fortune or a reputation. Its core elements, trust, spectacle, and celebrated generosity, form a fortress that is incredibly difficult to penetrate, whether you are a law enforcement agent or simply a curious donor. While the overwhelming majority of these events are exactly what they appear to be, heartfelt efforts to fund vital work, the persistent shadow of abuse forces a crucial question. How do we protect the spirit of giving from those who would exploit it? The answer lies not in abandoning philanthropy, but in refining our vision. True charity is measured not by the opulence of the fundraiser, but by the transparency of its results. It is found in clear financial reports, tangible outcomes, and a willingness to answer tough questions. It is about the quiet clinic built, the scholarship granted, the research funded, not just the dazzling bid that made the headline. That shift in focus, from the performance to the purpose, is our strongest defense. It turns passive attendance into active participation, transforming donors into guardians of the causes they support. We would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever attended a fundraiser that left you with unanswered questions, or heard whispers about a gala that seemed too good to be true? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you found this journey into the hidden corridors of philanthropy revealing, please subscribe. We delve deep into the untold stories where power, money, and scandal intersect, uncovering the truths that history often tries to polish away.